Hello and welcome to the Creative Community Podcast. This is the show where we interview local creatives and creative organisations. I'm your host, Claire Beardraz. I am a creative freelancer, spoken word performer and creative arts psychotherapist. And for today's episode, I'm joined by the wonderfully talented Nee Maxine. Hello, Nee. How are you doing today?
Very good, very good. Very tired, but very good. How are you?
Mood. I'm okay. I will say, I've had a coffee today and I'm not a regular caffeine sort of drinker. I wouldn't even know how to describe it, but so I'm feeling a little bit buzzing. Yeah, definitely. But yeah, thanks for joining us today on this episode.
Pleasure.
I was wondering if we could just briefly start with giving a little bit of introduction about yourself and your creative mediums, outlets as such.
Yeah. So I'm an artist, I'm a singer-songwriter, I'm in the jazz space. I describe my music as neo-jazz, and I am I don't even know, how do I describe myself?
It's a loaded question, isn't it?
Yeah, it's really hard to say it, because sometimes I don't believe that I am what I say I am, which is weird. Yeah. But today, today I released my debut single, so it feels like a really... I've actually become that today. So it's a bit weird.
Oh, very very magical indeed. Yeah. I know you mentioned that you're in the jazz space.
Yeah.
And I've seen the term neo-jazz associated with yourself.
Yes.
I was wondering, I'm really curious about neo-jazz. What does that mean to you when you use that term?
Well, it's really, I guess the influences that I have are, the gospel thing, the reggae thing and the jazz thing. But then I'm also really into neo-soul, and that's what I was sort of raised on. So it's kind of like an amalgamation of neo-soul and jazz, where it's a little bit more kind of, I guess, funky sometimes. Yeah. But also it's not just jazz because it's a contemporary voice. And I'm talking about contemporary issues, the contemporary Black British female experience.
Right.
But it's very much inspired by that old school jazz sound. So, yeah, it's I guess it's quite ambiguous, which maybe makes people wonder and maybe makes them think, maybe I should listen to that to see what that is.
Yeah, I think there's something really positive about ambiguity, when it comes to creative arts as well. It's leading things into interpretation, but also curiosity.
Yes.
And I love that about any form of art, is how
questions.
Some aren't answered as well, and it's great. It's sometimes there's no answers, is there?
No, yeah, it's hard to pin it down. Sorry, I'm a little bit this is ridiculous, but I'm a little bit bummed up because I think it's because we've had loads of flowers in my house. And it's just...
The hay fever is
fevering.
Whenever I hear hay fever, I always think about Tracy Beaker. Did you ever?
Oh my God, yeah, I'm not crying.
It's hay fever. Yeah, my friends have really bad hay fever. I feel sorry for them. I'm one of the few people that don't experience it, and I'm very awful. Grateful. No, completely understand. I love the preparation as well with the tissue.
A little floral box of tissues in my little bag.
Yes, I know you were saying that you have those loads of different sort of layers and inspirations for your music then.
Yeah.
Has those inspirations always stayed the same, or has it from the beginning, I guess, of your would career be the right way to describe it, or how would you look journey?
I always think journey, yeah. I'll call it a career when I make some money.
Mood, yeah.
but yeah, it is a career, I suppose. It's a very, very tough one.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think, so when I was growing up, my dad used to listen to a lot of jazz, so Jazz FM was always on, and he loved Herbie Hancock and Fela Kuti, and so that kind of stuff. And then my mum, in I guess contrast, but not really contrast, was really into her soul and rare grooves, so we grew up on a lot of that. And then I always joke that I was raised by MTV Bass. Take from that what you will, but I used to watch as a child. I used to watch MTV Bass, so I loved whatever was popular music at the time in Black culture, and Beyonce, for example. I loved. Yeah. And actually, in more recent years, I don't feel I can connect with her as much, which, but I haven't maybe listened to her new material as much as I used to listen to her old material, because I used to love Beyonce. And yeah, though I sort of later on discovered more jazz myself.
Right.
I think there were, I'm trying to think of like, there was a song called Pointless Satisfaction,
Right.
which was on one of the music channels. I was flicking through and I found this song, and it was like saxophone, upright bass possibly, and this vocalist, piano, drums, like cymbals, I think. And like this song just, even now, just thinking about it, or when I hear it, I'm like, oh, I love this song so much. There's just something about it that makes me it just makes me feel something. It just makes me feel something. And that was like jazz. I think they're from like New York or something.
Right. Okay.
And then I was at Family Friend, and he gave me an Ella Fitzgerald CD to borrow, which I never gave back actually. But I really loved it. I didn't want to give it back. And it had a little lyric book inside.
Yeah.
And it was Ella Fitzgerald Sings the Irving Berlin Songbook. And
Right.
yeah, that was my sort of first, I want to say like one of my first like jazz encounters that really made me
Right.
think, oh yeah, this feels like me. And I was quite young then, probably secondary school,
Right.
early secondary school. So yeah, that was and then I think from there, just like, yeah, it just sort of weaved its way into me becoming a neo-jazz singer.
Right. So, based off your like new song, like, I know you mentioned that you've released, were there similar inspirations and with that, or was the piece different in any way?
Yeah, so it's very, I guess, actually, it's weird to think. I mean, I was playing some songs earlier that
Yeah.
have inspired me, and it's kind of also got a bit of that sort of soulful inspiration,
Right.
like Aretha Franklin. I know the song "Daydreaming" really comes to my mind when I think of. It was one of my references for the track because I wanted it to be kind of dreamy. It's called Strange Love, and I wanted it to be this dreamy, like, journey through love and life and relationships that makes you sort of like reflect on your own relationships, and then eventually you reach this point where you learn to love yourself. And the message is like, relationships are really hard, but like you need to realize that like loving yourself is like, it might take you a while to get to it, but that's like the most important thing, and from there things will improve. So yeah, that's like, and yeah, I think Aretha Franklin, Daydreaming is a big influence for that. But I didn't grow up listening to that sort of music.
Right.
So
It's something you sort of like began to explore sort of more independently as you were.
yeah, like really
Yeah.
recently actually, yeah. Yeah.
Amazing. I guess like as you're describing, I guess that aspect of like love and self-love, it reminds me so much of like a piece of poetry I did about the journey of self-love, and it's like so interesting, like how
Theme.
the theme, right, we can have the same theme and yet the sort of outputs can be completely two different sort of ways of interpreting it, but also
Yeah.
I guess two different creative mediums can have the same message but have, again, it goes back to that like ambiguity of like
Yeah, absolutely.
creativity.
I also think there's something really interesting about being a Black British female, because I think we're, you know, from a very, very young age, we are taught that we are lesser and that we're like not desirable. We don't have like desirable features, or, you know, and we're sexualized and all this stuff. And like, I think we go through a lot of stuff because the low self-esteem that comes from that.
Absolutely.
And I think, you know, I want young Black girls to hear this song and be like, oh yeah, like, you know what, I need to love myself. And like also, you know, people who are going through those rough relationships to kind of think, you know what, this is happening, but maybe I just need to focus on myself a bit more, rather than looking for love in the wrong places, like looking for validation from these external sources. Actually, I need to, you know, feel it for myself from within. So yeah.
It's hard sometimes to remind yourself of that, right? That sort of
Yeah.
you are number one, right? And I guess that comes with also like navigating through sort of the creative industry. I don't know what your experiences have been like, sort of weaving your way through, and sort of I guess what I'm trying to say is, I know with my experiences, I've always noticed there's a lack of diversity and always feeling sometimes of otherness.
Yeah,
in
otherness.
spaces.
Yeah.
I'm wondering what your sort of experiences have been like.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like in the industry so far, I've been really, really fortunate to be, I think actually to be in Liverpool, and like, you know, around lots of black creatives who, like, actually before moving to Liverpool, I didn't really ever feel part of any kind of black creative community.
Yeah.
But here I think there's like a real like amazing scene that's bubbling, and it's like, you know, we met the other day and like we're just getting to know each other, and I just think I really want to hear what you're doing, and like I want you to be around like all the people I know, and it's that kind of like, because we're in a really small city, it is easy enough for us to actually come together, and there aren't there are lots of us, but there aren't that many of us, so that's quite cool as well, because it's like, you know, we can all, like I said, it's easy for us to be in the same space. It's not going to take us like 2 hours to get there.
So
we can just pop in and out, and it's
quite
like,
literally,
and I think it's exciting. But up until really post-pandemic of being here, I have never ever felt part of a community, really. I've always felt like a bit different, and like even within my own family, I have quite pale skin compared to my mum and my brother and my sister, who I grew up with primarily, and I've always just felt a bit like an outsider, and a bit like, you know, well, I don't even know what I am, you know, because I mean, I describe myself as a black woman, but now I'm like, if people look at me, they might think, well, you're not fully black, so how can you say you're black?
And so relate.
It's so hard, because I'm like, well, my experience is black. My mum is black. My dad is mixed race.
Yeah.
So, I feel like my experience is that of a black person. However, I am aware of privileges that I have because I have light skin.
Yeah.
It's very complex. Very complex.
Definitely. Yeah, there is something about sort of that relationship with racial identity, and even as you were sort of speaking about your experience, I completely relate. It's that even sort of how, like, I'm going to say I instead of we, because I just talk about my own personal experience, but like, you know, the way I represent myself, and even me like doing something like straightening my hair, I'm like, oh my gosh, am I like suddenly my racial identity is like taken away from me, and it's like this ongoing battle, or like this internal discourse of like, what am I?
What am I? Who am I?
Where am I in this? It's wild to me that there is a lot of ignorance around the whole topic of there are shades of black.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, because like we're not white, so like, do you know what I mean? And I find the idea of being mixed race, like I've never claimed that as like I've never felt like a mixed race person, because I don't have a white parent, so I don't relate to that, I don't think, because I haven't, I don't know, I have a white grandma, she's not with us anymore, but like I don't relate to that. But then at the same time, I do relate to like the mixed race experience when I hear about other mixed race people's experiences. But then I don't feel that, if I think about my own identity, I don't.
Like your identity and experience is sort of linked in some ways, but also can be sort of,
there's like, it's almost like a tension.
Yeah.
It's like, where do you sit, you know? And yeah, it's really hard.
It is tricky. So now you were saying sort of your fortunate experiences of being in Liverpool, and that like connectedness between like local artists. Where were you based before then? So was it pre-pandemic you were based somewhere else, is that right?
So we moved to Liverpool in 2019, so we were here, but we were like in a job where we needed to work from home in the evenings, so we didn't really have a social life until I think it was the end of 2019, probably like November-ish, and then obviously in the following April or May or March, when it was lockdown happened.
Yeah.
And it was kind of like, you know, being connected with people online, but not
Right.
in real life. And then actually since after the pandemic and obviously everything that happened in 2020, I think that's really strengthened the community in a way. I mean, I think it's still very fragmented, but I think it's like we just met the other day and I didn't know you before then. So I'm like, great, like come, like do you know what I mean? It's like that the community is growing and like coming together. And I mean, like lots of people are going off and going to do other things, but I think it's really important that we keep our sense of belonging amongst ourselves.
Yeah. And not lose that sense of community.
Exactly. Yeah. I think it's really crucial because I think it's hard when you're a black person trying to navigate white spaces and you are the other all the time, and it's like it's not good for your self-esteem.
No, definitely
It's
not.
just not.
Definitely not. And you also at the same time don't want to be boxed into stereotypes or expectations as of like, because you're black, because you're X, Y, or Z, therefore
You must
everything
like this, you must like that. Not necessarily.
No, absolutely not. Yeah. I do sort of agree with you as well about that sense of sort of community within Liverpool. I know you were saying then sort of things went online and that's how you were sort of connecting with others. Do you find that was useful then to have that? I mean, obviously the pandemic was absolutely terrible, but like having that online space to connect with others, do you think that made a difference to if you had sort of, this wasn't a thing and you were like out going face to face? And do you think, essentially has that influenced the output, I guess, of where you are?
I think what's I'm kind of going to skirt around the question a little bit and then come back to it. But I think for me, the pandemic was a really important period because I started going to therapy, which I'd needed for years. And it's like, thank God I've finally gone, and I go regularly as I can afford to. But like that for me was a real turning point, which helped me to start to connect with myself, because I don't think I had really ever done that before. So it was a very eye-opening time, and I'm still learning all these things about myself that I love and hate. You know, hate this thing about myself, and that's fine. I think we all have our. I think it's natural to have things about yourself that you don't like, and good to be aware of them and try and change them. But also, like, I think without therapy, I would be quite ignorant to those things, maybe, or just like trying to ignore them. I think that's actually in turn, going to therapy helped me to connect with what it means to me to be a black woman, and also like how I connect with other people, whether they're black or white or whatever, and how I relate to other people. It's been having that, and then being able to, like, I guess, meet people online, but like, you know, see what people are into and recognize, oh, we're interested in that music, we both like that, we both like that. That's like, oh, okay, well, we could go to this event together or that event, or if you want to come to mine, we can listen to this kind of playlist, that kind of thing. So I think it was a good way to, I guess, I know, you know, social media is a very censored version of everybody,
Of course.
but, you know, you can start to at least gather a picture of who people want to be and see what kind of world they want to inhabit. And then you're like, okay, I align with that. Yeah. So let's be in that space together. Let's create that together. Let's create our own table together. And I think that's that's the power of the internet.
I love that sort of idea of you, like, the way you've described it is like seeing what world they want to inhabit, seeing it like that.
Yeah. That just came to me in that moment. I don't know where that came from.
She's an icon. Wow. You know, honestly, that is like such a really fascinating perspective on it. And it has me thinking about, oh my gosh, like, what's my social media like? Is it the world that I want to inhabit, or is it something else? Is it like other?
I mean, the thing is, I don't know. It is, the reason I say that is because I think, obviously, it is such a, I only show on social media like the good bits, So like the real world that I live in is not always jazzy fancy, like wearing a nice dress. I'm just wearing a t-shirt. I mean, I'm wearing an Africa Oya t-shirt, and I am playing next Sunday. But yeah, I don't know. It's like, I think the point, well, not the point of it, but what it's become is this kind of fake world in a way. Not fake, but like just only the good bits. Which is what we ideally would want always, I think. I think I would like the good bits regularly.
Yeah, I guess it reinforces that idea of perfectionism in some ways, doesn't it? It can add pressures, but at the same time, you know, social media is a great way of connecting. It's always about that balance of like, how involved do I get? Am I too involved now? What's my relationship like with this? Is this unhealthy? Like,
it's unhealthy. Yes, it is. Generally, it is.
Should I stop being on TikTok for like 8 hours a day? Yeah, but it's it is just sort of an interesting sort of medium. It is, I guess. I personally have a real interest in sort of the 1980s Black Arts movement, like in London, cool. And across the UK.
Is that where you're from?
I'm from London, yeah.
Whereabouts?
Hackney.
Oh, cool, nice.
Are you from?
I was born in. I didn't even answer your question earlier. Did you ask me earlier where I was from? Anyway, I was born in North London, and then I grew up in Bristol. And then I went back to London for uni, and then dropped out of uni, worked for a few years, and then moved to Liverpool with my partner.
Okay, so London to Bristol to London to Liverpool. Yeah. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay, this is, I'm curious now. So what have your experiences been like? Because I know you said obviously when you came to Liverpool, there was that sense of like community and connection with other Black artists and creatives. And you'd experienced that previous sort of sensation of otherness in other spaces before that. I wonder, like, going from somewhere like Bristol, London and Liverpool, like, I imagine there are similarities and differences across the board.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I think I'll start on the Liverpool point. I think there's a reason why, a kind of universe reason why all of us are here right now in this place, and it's very powerful, and I wish it could be harnessed better. I'm trying my best, but I don't know. I mean, you're doing this is a way of harnessing it, and thank you for having me,
of course,
to be part of it. But I think there's a universe reason why we're all here right now, and why we've all been here during the pandemic and been through all of that collective trauma.
Yes.
In isolation, but with the awareness of other people who look like us also feeling that, so actually not in isolation, even though physically we were. And to go back to the actual question, like, I think London was cool. Like, I have incredible friends who are Black women who are incredible. They're empowered, and they empower me every day, and like, without even needing to talk to me, that is like the wisdom that they've imparted in me, and like just them caring and being there, and you know, they're people who I hope are in my life forever, and I think they will be. They're like sisters. But when you're in London, everyone's so busy and everyone lives so far away. So you don't actually get to see much of each other. I think I've seen more of my London friends now that I don't live there than I did when. Do you feel that?
Definitely.
It's like, really? Like, it's just so fast paced. There's no time to like, just chill, I think. You're constantly working or whatever it is you have to do.
There's always something to be done. Or you feel like you have to be doing something, or like if you work full-time commuting from like A to B, and it's like it's just a whole life is taken up by surviving there. So I mean, there were moments when I lived in London that I did feel like an outsider, like when I went to uni, and I dropped out of uni, as I said before. I was studying fashion PR and communication at London College of Fashion, and it just wasn't. I don't think I was meant to be there. There were like people in my what do you call it? I guess class
on my course who were talking about driving their Range Rovers around central London and having $5,000 nose jobs or something. And I was like, I can't afford to buy food. I can't afford to buy pastry in the morning. It just didn't feel like I would ever survive in that world, because if I'm competing against, I say competing, that's what it is in the job market.
Yeah.
You're competing against your peers for very few jobs, which might require you to work for free for however many years to get your foot in the door. If they're driving Range Rovers around London and I can't afford a croissant, there is absolutely no way. So I just gave up. And like my mental health was really bad at that time, and it wasn't where I was meant to be. So that was not like the best environment. I don't think there was lots of people I met who, you know, I'm sure some of them are really lovely people, but the place that I was in at that time, I wasn't able to, I don't know.
It sounds like it wasn't like a space for nurturing. It was more like you have to already predetermine like...
It does. Yeah.
Like when I finish uni, I've already got this connection, so I'm just...
Yeah, I'm just going to step into that. I've already tagged Balenciaga in my Instagram post. They already know who I am because I'm wearing their clothes, so I'm just going to step into that world. It's that kind of... That's what fashion seems like to me. Right. And I always loved fashion, but the fashion industry, I just realised quite early on, this is a clique. And like it is, obviously there's loads of black people in fashion now, and that is really shifting. But how many years later? I think I was there in 2017. So that was 5 years ago. It was not like it is now. If I went to uni now, fashion school, I might be able to, well, especially after therapy, I might be able to actually do that. But I didn't see people who looked like me in the industry. I didn't see those spaces that I thought, oh yeah, I'll feel comfortable within that. So it just didn't seem like my kind of world. If we step back another step to Bristol, I think, Bristol has a weird history like Liverpool of slavery and, you know, all of that disgusting stuff.
Yeah.
And to me, it's really embedded in the culture there. Like, you know, there are black areas that are impoverished and there are white areas across the road that are absolutely filthy rich. And it's such a horrible juxtaposition, because it's like, I didn't realise it when I was there. Yeah. But it's like really violent. And like, obviously when gentrification starts to happen, it's even more violent, and you see it and you're like, how can you be living like this? And then 5-minute walk, people are living like that. And like, I was on that side. I actually lived in a council house on the edge of an estate, which was in a very white area. So I wasn't part of the black community there, so I was an outsider to that as well. But I was also an outsider as a black person on a kind of predominantly white council estate. But also had friends who were mainly white. I went to a girls' school, which was kind of like a bit posh, you know. Yeah. And my friends were white and they had money and I didn't. And the self-esteem thing of feeling like I don't have this, and therefore I don't deserve this, and there's a reason why, and I don't know that reason, but I feel quite emotional, and I might cry because I still, it's hard to feel like that, you know?
Yeah, I can imagine it must have been a really difficult sort of experience to carry with you, and I mean I can see, you know, the emotion there. And I really appreciate you like sharing that as well, because clearly like it's a really sort of powerful experience. And
you know, I'm sure they are lovely people, but like I didn't feel loved in that space, you know. And I think, and I know for a fact that my mental health influenced my relationships. Right. Strange Love is the song, my new song it talks about different relationships and reaching self-love, and there's so many more songs that will come out that will talk about all of my experiences. But yeah, it's really, I think when you have such low self-esteem, you really your standards are low. So you accept a lot and you take a lot and you don't realise the toll it's having on you until it's like almost at breaking point that you're like, no, I need to come out of this. And yeah, it's difficult. It's difficult being black and British. What can I say?
Absolute facts.
It's so difficult.
Yeah, no, couldn't agree more. And I'm so happy to hear that you feel like you're more in a space here in Liverpool that is sort of,
oh yeah,
I guess describe like safe, like in way of being or expressing.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like being in Liverpool has allowed me to find my voice and like actually like respect my voice as well, because I don't think I always have. Like I've always, like, you know, there were times where I was at school where I just felt like if I'm saying something within this group of people, someone's just going to talk over me or they're going to turn their back to me in conversation. So nobody cares what I have to say. So yeah, it's being here is, and I think, you know, my family roots are here. So my mum's side of the family moved to Walton in North Liverpool. So they were a black family in North Liverpool in the, I think, 70s or whatever, from then onwards. And then my dad's side of the family, my granddad is from Nigeria, and he met my grandma, who was a white woman from Coventry, and my dad was born in Birkenhead.
Right.
So there's like this kind of family history that I'm discovering here, which is also helping me to understand my experience and put everything, including my parents' complexities, into context.
Yeah, definitely.
To understand them, and through them, understanding them, understand more about myself. And yeah, so it's very, my music's about identity, belonging, what is home, what does it mean to be black and British and female right now. That's what it's about.
I wonder then, have you got any other projects you're working on and other pieces of music that are sort of up and coming?
Yeah, definitely. So Strange Love is out now. It came out on 10th of June. So I'm currently working on my next single, which is called A Day in St. John's Lane, and that's about the street where I grew up. As I mentioned before, it's a very interesting street, I think, because on my side of the street was council houses. Some of them were privately owned, eventually, and are now, but council houses, and then busy main road, which had a bus route, so lots of people passing through all the time. And then on the other side were like Victorian or Edwardian terraced houses that some of them would have been privately rented, I imagine, but some of them privately owned. And then behind that was this place which is very gentrified, and I mean, like, it's a very arty, lovely community, you know, like lots of hippy dippy people, and a nice pub and a nice park, and there's money there, you know, and it's quite slowly creeping down and driving all the house prices of the council estate up. But it was a very interesting place to grow up, because I always looked out of the window at these terraced houses and thought, I want to live in a house like that, because it's not a council house, so people won't think I'm like lesser than them. So I always had this desire to be on the other side, in a way. But anyway, the song is about that street. I realise I sound so bunged up, so I'm sorry to anybody listening to this.
I'm sure it's relatable though, like, you know what I mean?
Yeah. So that will be coming out. I'm planning a tour in the north in the autumn.
That's so exciting.
Which is funded by Jazz North, which is an amazing organisation that help emerging artists to tour. They help absorb some of the risks, so promoters aren't like, we don't know you. How are you?
Right.
So that's really cool. Just plodding away, just seeing what else happens, really. Working hard, trying to push the music out as far as I can, and hopefully, you know, bring people together through the music and like share my experience in a way that's honest, where people can go, I really relate to that. And then it's like, okay, come into this community that I'm creating and look who else you might meet, and you might be able to help this person with this thing, and you might be able to help. And I just love that idea of everybody kind of like being this space and like bring each other up. And I just think we've got, like, we have to. Nobody is gonna help us. We've got to help ourselves.
Yeah.
And it's very easy to be divided, because like I always say, it's on my like press releases and stuff, but I say the algorithm divides us, but we are so much more powerful when we're united. And I think we literally live in a world that's moving more and more towards an algorithmic way of being, where we only see stuff that the algorithm wants us to.
Yeah.
So what are we not seeing then? What are we missing that's out there that actually could be really beneficial or healing or whatever it is to us?
Amazing. Yeah, definitely. I really resonate with what you're saying and completely agree with that as well. This has been like an amazing sort of discussion with you. I just want to say thank you so much for your time.
Thanks for having me.
It's been really sort of fascinating getting to know you more and a little bit about your creative arts and music as well. It's been lovely.
Thank you for having me.
So that is it for today's episode. If you have enjoyed that and you're watching on YouTube, be sure to give the video a thumbs up. It lets us know that you're enjoying the episodes, and subscribe, because we have at least 10 episodes coming out. If you're not watching on YouTube, that means you might be listening to us on one of our streaming platforms. So be sure to head over to YouTube to see our faces. Oh my gosh, see it, check it out. Leave a rating, and again, let us know what you're thinking about things so far. I have been your host, Claire Beardraz. If you do want to keep up to date with me and my projects, you can follow me on @ClaireBeardraz on pretty much every social media platform. It's shameful, but it's true. I am on basically every social media. You gotta be, right? Yeah, that has been it for today's episode. Thank you again, Nee. Really appreciate it. And we will see you guys in the next one.
Bye.